My name is Sarah Brennan. I am 38 years old, and I want to tell you about the 4 months I spent watching my daughter do something I misread completely. Something I treated as a behavior issue, a phase, a battle of wills at the dinner table, until the night she said 6 words that made me understand I had been looking at it exactly backwards the entire time. My daughter's name is Lily. She is 7. She has dark curly hair that she has strong opinions about. She will only allow it to be braided a specific way, and if it isn't right, she will quietly undo it and start over herself, rather than complain to anyone. She has a gap between her 2 front teeth that appeared this spring, and that I am still not entirely used to, that catches me off guard sometimes with how much older it makes her look. She is precise and observant, and notices things that adults have long since stopped noticing, and she has a very particular way of going completely still when she is thinking about something serious. A full physical stillness, like a small animal deciding something important. She is not a dramatic child. She does not perform her feelings. When something is wrong with Lily, she goes quiet before she goes anywhere else, and the quiet can last a long time before anything surfaces. This is relevant. This is, in many ways, the whole story. 4 months ago, Lily stopped finishing her meals. Not all of them, not dramatically, just consistently. Every evening, there would be food remaining on her plate when she set her fork down. A few bites of pasta, half a piece of chicken, the last portion of whatever vegetable I had included, with the quiet optimism of a parent who knows vegetables will not be finished, but includes them anyway out of principle. She would eat most of what was on her plate, and then at some point, she would set her fork down and go still, and that would simply be it. I handled it the way I handle most things with Lily. I observed for a few days to see if it would resolve on its own, and when it didn't, I started paying closer attention. Was she unwell? She didn't appear to be. Her energy was normal. Her mood was entirely herself. She was sleeping fine. Nothing about her daily functioning had changed in any visible way. Was she simply not hungry? Children's appetites fluctuate. I know this. But the regularity nagged at me. Not random, not occasional, not correlated to any particular food or day of the week. Always the last few bites. Always the same point in the meal where the fork would go down and the stillness would arrive. Every single evening. Was she being defiant? I ran through this possibility with the specific guilt of a mother who knows she has thought it and is not entirely proud of herself for it. But Lily was not a defiant eater. She had always been relatively easy at the table by the standards of small children. She didn't refuse vegetables categorically. She didn't turn meals into negotiations. The leaving of food felt deliberate, but it didn't feel like resistance directed at me. I asked her about it after the first week. "You're not finishing your dinner," I said. Casual, not accusatory. "I'm full," she said. "You didn't used to get full with that much still on the plate." She shrugged, took a sip of water, looked at the window. "I'm just full now," she said. I let it go. I'd read enough about childhood eating to know that making food into a confrontation was one of the fastest routes to making food into a lasting problem, and I was not interested in that outcome. I let it go, and the weeks passed, and she kept doing it, and something small and persistent lived at the back of my mind. Not alarm, not urgency, just the particular quiet nagging of a body that understands something the mind hasn't yet put into words. There is something I need to tell you about the months before this started. Something I had not connected to Lily's dinners because I had placed them in entirely separate categories in my mind. The way adults partition things into boxes and assume the boxes don't speak to each other. My mother, Lily's grandmother, who Lily calls Nana, who had lived 20 minutes from us for all of Lily's 7 years, had been diagnosed with a serious illness in January. The kind of illness that doesn't resolve quickly or cleanly, that you learn to manage and monitor and reorganize your life around, that changes the texture of family life in ways both practical and invisible. My mother was not facing an immediate crisis. Her doctors were optimistic in the measured way that doctors are optimistic. There were treatments, there was a plan, she was responding, but she was changed. Her appetite had dropped significantly, a common effect of both her condition and the medications managing it. She was thinner than she had been. At family Sunday dinners, she ate small portions and left most of what was on her plate, pushing food gently around with her fork in the way of someone whose relationship with eating had become complicated and effortful. I had noticed this and worried about it in the way you worry about a parent becoming more fragile. I had spoken to her doctors. I had made her favorite foods on Sundays. I had done everything a daughter does when someone she loves is sick, and most of what she tries cannot reach the actual problem. What I had not done, what did not once occur to me to do, was think carefully about what Lily was watching at those Sunday dinners. Every week, for months. The moment I understood came on a Tuesday evening in April. Dinner was a simple pasta, nothing notable, nothing requiring comment. Lily ate most of it. The fork went down. The stillness arrived. I had been watching for it. I said, as gently as I could manage, "Lily, can you eat a few more bites?" She looked at her plate. Then she looked at me. And in that look was something I had not seen before. Not defiance, not the blank wall of a child who has decided not to engage. Something more careful than that. Something that had been sitting behind her eyes for a long time and was now, very quietly, deciding whether to come forward. "Nana doesn't finish hers," she said. The kitchen went completely still. I looked at my daughter across the table. She looked back at me with the focused, careful expression of someone who has held something private for a long time and has let a small piece of it out and is now watching to see what happens. "What do you mean?" I said. "At Sunday dinners," she said. "Nana always leaves food. She doesn't finish. You don't make her eat more. You don't say anything about it. You just let her." A pause. Her fingers went still against the edge of the table. "So I thought if I don't finish mine either, maybe I can save it for her. Like, if I leave mine and she gets it, she'll get stronger." I did not speak for a moment. I could not speak for a moment. My 7-year-old daughter had spent 4 months watching her grandmother stop eating, had watched the adults around the table accept this without protest, had watched me, specifically, clear Nana's barely touched bowl without a word, without pressure, without insisting she eat more. And she had built, in her precise and quiet and entirely 7-year-old way, a logic. Food that was not eaten could be given. If Nana was sick and not eating meant getting weaker, then Lily's uneaten food could become Nana's strength. She had been leaving food on her plate every evening for 4 months as a private offering, a daily ritual. Her own small, earnest, completely serious attempt to intervene in something the adults around her had seemed to accept as beyond intervention. She had not told anyone, not me, not her father, not her best friend at school. She had simply done it. Quietly, every evening, with the focused, private intention of someone who has identified a problem and is working steadily on a solution. I pressed my lips together very hard for a moment. Then I said, "Come here." She climbed off her chair and came around the table, and I pulled her onto my lap. She is technically too old for this, and she submitted to it completely, tucking herself into me the way she had at 4, at 3, when she was very small and the world was simpler. "Tell me all of it," I said into her hair. "Everything you've been thinking, from the beginning." And she did. It had started in February, she told me, a specific Sunday. I had made chicken soup, her grandmother's favorite, the one with the wide noodles. and Nana had eaten perhaps a third of it before pushing the bowl gently away and saying she was sorry. She just wasn't very hungry today. I had said, of course, not to worry, and I had cleared the bowl without comment because making my mother feel guilty about eating was the last thing I wanted to do. Lily had watched this. She had sat across the table and watched me take away a bowl of soup that was mostly full, and she had thought, that is not enough. That is not enough soup for someone who is sick. Nana needs more soup. She had thought about it for a week. She had arrived, through her own internal architecture of logic, at the conclusion that food was the mechanism, that Nana was not getting better because Nana was not eating enough, and that the solution was to make more food available, and that one way to make more food available was for Lily herself to eat less and save the difference as a kind of contribution. I know it doesn't actually go to her, Lily said, with the slight defensiveness of a child anticipating that the grown-up might point out a flaw in the plan. I know it doesn't physically go there. I'm not a baby. A small pause. But I thought if I saved mine, it was like I was thinking about her. And if I thought about her hard enough at dinner time, maybe it would help. Like it counted somehow. Like she could feel it. She said this last part very quietly, in the voice she uses for things she isn't entirely sure are allowed. The place in a 7-year-old where logic and wishing are not yet cleanly separated, where the earnestness of a gesture can feel, if performed consistently enough, like it might genuinely affect outcomes in the world. You've been doing this every single night? I said. Since February, she said. Every night? Almost. A pause waited with guilt. I forgot once. I ate everything before I remembered. I felt really bad about it. I thought about February, about March, about every evening for 4 months. The fork going down, the stillness, the small precise amount of food left at the edge of the plate. And understood, for the first time, what I had actually been watching. Not defiance, not a phase, not a change in appetite. My daughter conducting a private vigil every evening at the dinner table for her grandmother. We had not told Lily very much about Nana's illness. We had told her the facts, the child-appropriate version. Nana was sick. Doctors were helping. Nana was going to be okay. But might seem different for a while. More tired than usual, less hungry than usual. We had tried to be honest without being frightening. We had given her the outline and trusted that it was enough. What we had not considered was what Lily would do with the space between the outline and what she could actually see. Children are extraordinarily efficient at filling that space. They fill it with everything available. Observation, imagination, the particular logic of a 7-year-old who is watching carefully and assembling meaning from everything she notices. Lily had watched the adults in her family respond to Nana's illness with a kind of loving, accepting helplessness. We wait, we support, we manage, we hope. And she had looked at this response and decided, privately, that there was actually something that could be done. Small, daily, private, but something. Something she could do that the adults, for whatever reason, had not thought of. She had not done this carelessly. She had done it with complete seriousness, sustained over 4 months, without telling anyone, because telling anyone might mean someone would stop her, and she was not prepared to be stopped. I held her on my lap in the kitchen and thought about the specific texture of that kind of love. The love that invents its own actions when the available actions feel insufficient. The love that keeps its rituals private so they can't be taken away. I thought about how much of her 7-year-old inner life I did not have access to. How much she processed alone, in her quiet, in her stillness, without giving me any of it until now. Lily, I said, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. She looked up at me. Nana is not sick because she isn't eating enough, I said. The reason she isn't eating much is because she's sick. It works in that direction, not the other way. The illness affects her appetite. It is not something that can be fixed by saving food. I want to be very clear with you about that. Not because your idea was wrong in your heart. Because in your heart it was one of the most loving things I've ever heard of. But because I don't want you to spend one more evening sitting at this table believing that Nana's recovery depends on what you leave on your plate. That is too much weight for one small person. She looked at me for a long moment. Is she going to get better? She said. There it was. The question behind all of it, the question I had been carefully not answering for 3 months, had been surrounding with soft language about managing and monitoring, and as well as can be expected, and the doctors are very pleased with how things are going. I looked at my daughter's face, the gap-toothed, dark curly-haired face of a person who had been leaving food on her plate every night for 4 months out of love, who had been conducting her own private ritual of hope, who had absolutely earned a real answer. I don't know exactly what better will look like, I said. I think she will feel better than she feels right now. The doctors are working very hard, and so is Nana. But it might be a slow kind of better, and it might not look exactly the way things used to look, and that is frightening, and you are completely allowed to be frightened by it. Her chin did the thing it does. I am frightened, she said, very small. I know, I said. I am too. Something shifted in her face. Genuine surprise, as if the possibility that I was frightened too had not occurred to her, as if she had assumed that the adults around her were operating from a place of managed certainty that she simply hadn't yet been admitted into. You are? She said. Yes, I said. Nana is my mom. When your mom is sick, it frightens you. That doesn't stop happening when you get older. I'm 38 years old and I'm scared, and I don't always know what to do. And most evenings I come to the dinner table carrying a lot of feelings that I haven't fully sorted out yet. She thought about this for a while. Why didn't you tell me you were scared? She said. And that question sat in my chest like a stone. Because I had been trying to protect her, I thought. Because I had decided that the correct thing was to give her the managed version. The version where the adults have things under control and the child is allowed to continue being a child. Because I had drawn a line around my own fear and my mother's illness and labeled it adult territory and handed Lily the child-appropriate summary and assumed that was sufficient. And she had taken the summary and gone away and built her own architecture inside the gap between what she'd been told and what she could see. And the architecture was 4 months of uneaten dinners and private hope and a 7-year-old quietly trying to save her grandmother with the only material she had available. I didn't tell you because I was trying to protect you, I said. But I think I got it a little wrong. I think protecting you from my fear left you alone with yours, and that wasn't fair to you. She leaned her head back against my shoulder. I don't like being alone with it, she said. I know. I said, I don't either. We sat together in the kitchen for a long time, not solving anything, not arriving anywhere in particular, just sitting with it together, which was, it turned out, the thing that both of us had needed for months. I called my mother that night after Lily was asleep. I told her about the dinners, about the uneaten food, and the logic Lily had built, and the 4 months of private vigil. I told her in the straightforward way you tell your mother things when you are no longer a child. Not to worry her, not to add to her burden, but because she was the center of the story, and she deserved to know what her granddaughter had been quietly doing on her behalf. My mother was very quiet for a while. Then she said, 4 months. 4 months, I said. Another long silence. She never said a word, my mother said. Not sadly. Something else, but with a kind of wondering. She just did it. She didn't want anyone to stop her, I said. My mother made a sound I recognized, a sound I had heard from her my whole life at moments of overwhelming feeling, a sound she had passed to me without knowing it. "I want to talk to her," she said. "I want to see her this weekend." "I know," I said, and "Tell her." She stopped, started again. "Tell her I felt it." Whatever she was sending, I felt it. I sat in my kitchen after we hung up and looked at the dinner table, the clear plates, the ordinary surface of a weeknight evening. I thought about the way children love, not with strategy, not with proportion, not with any calibration of effort to likely outcome, with total sincerity and total stubbornness and total commitment to doing the thing they have decided to do for as long as it takes, alone if necessary. Lily had loved her grandmother with uneaten pasta for 4 months. She had not complained. She had not drawn attention to it. She had not asked for recognition or reassurance. She had simply decided that this was what she could do, and she had done it every evening, as faithfully as a prayer. That Sunday, my mother came for dinner. I had told Lily, beforehand, what I had told her on the phone, that Nana knew about the dinners, that Nana wanted to see her, that Nana had something she wanted to say. Lily was nervous in the way she gets nervous, very still, very controlled, not showing it to anyone who didn't know what to look for. When my mother arrived, she came into the kitchen, and she looked at Lily, and she crossed the room, and she crouched down in front of her, which is not easy for my mother right now. Her body requires more from her than it used to, and she took Lily's face in both her hands. "Your mother told me what you've been doing," she said. Lily looked at her. "She told me about every dinner, all 4 months." My mother's voice was steady. She has always been steadier than me. "I want you to know something. I want you to know that every single night, at dinner time, I felt something. I couldn't always explain it. I didn't know what it was, but something warm would arrive, right around dinner time, and I would think, something good is happening somewhere. Something is being sent my way." She looked at her granddaughter directly. "Now I know what it was. It was you." Lily's composure, which had been holding admirably, came apart all at once. She leaned forward into her grandmother's arms, and my mother held her there on the kitchen floor, both of them folded together, and I stood at the counter and kept my back to them for a moment because I was not going to be able to maintain myself if I watched directly. "I wanted to help," Lily said into her grandmother's shoulder, muffled, slightly thick. "I didn't know what else to do." "You helped," my mother said. "You helped in exactly the way you decided to help, and it worked, and I need you to know that." Whether this was literally true in any medical or physical sense is a question I am not qualified to answer. What I know is that my mother said it with complete conviction, and that Lily received it with complete belief, and that the thing that had been sitting inside my daughter for 4 months, the weight of a private vigil conducted alone, shifted and lightened in a way I could almost see. We had dinner that Sunday. I made my mother's favorite soup, and she ate more of it than she'd eaten in months. Not all of it, but more. And she ate it with attention rather than with the absent pushing around of someone going through motions. Whether this was coincidence, I do not know. I choose in this instance to believe my daughter. In the weeks since, several things have changed. We talk about Nana's illness more openly now, not graphically, not in ways that frighten, but honestly, at the level that Lily actually sees and feels, rather than at the level of managed summaries. She asks questions, and I answer them as honestly as I can, including when the honest answer is, "I don't know," including when the honest answer is, "I'm scared too," and we're all going to sit with that together. Lily finishes her dinner now. Not because I require it. I have never required it. I still do not require it. But because the reason for leaving food behind has been addressed and the ritual is no longer necessary. She eats what she wants and leaves what she doesn't, and the fork goes down at the natural end of a meal rather than at a predetermined point of sacrifice. Small thing, enormous thing. She also talks more, not constantly. She is still herself, still quiet by nature, still someone who processes before she surfaces. But the space between what she feels and what she says to me has shortened. She came to me 2 weeks ago and said, out of nowhere, that she had been thinking about Nana and feeling worried, and could we call her? I said yes, and we called her right then, in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon, for no reason except that a 7-year-old needed to hear her grandmother's voice. Nana answered on the second ring and talked to Lily for 20 minutes about her garden and her neighbor's new dog and a book she was reading. And Lily sat cross-legged on the kitchen floor with the phone pressed to her ear, and her face went through 5 different kinds of warmth in 20 minutes. And when she hung up, she sat for a moment and then looked at me and said, "She sounded good today." "She did," I said. Lily nodded with the satisfied gravity of someone checking something that matters. "Good," she said, and went back to her book. There is one more moment I want to tell you. About 3 weeks after the conversation, I was making dinner, and I called Lily to the table, and she came in and sat down and looked at her plate and looked up at me with an expression I recognized, careful, deliberate, something in progress behind her eyes. "Mom," she said. "Yeah?" "I want to give Nana the first bowl of soup next Sunday. Like, actually give it to her. Not save mine. Actually put the first bowl in front of her." I looked at my daughter. "That's a lovely idea," I said. "And I want to be the one who serves her," she said. "Not you. Me." "Okay," I said. "You can do that." She nodded and picked up her spoon and began eating her dinner with the calm of someone who has made a decision and feels settled by it. Not sacrificing her portion, not conducting a private ritual no one could see, doing something visible and chosen and direct. The translation of 4 months of private offering into something she could actually hand to the person it was meant for. That Sunday, she served her grandmother the first bowl. She carried it across the kitchen carefully, both hands, the way you carry something important, and she set it in front of my mother and stood back. My mother picked up her spoon and looked at her granddaughter. "Thank you, my love," she said. Lily stood very straight. "You're welcome, Nana," she said. "Eat all of it." My mother smiled, the real one, the one that reaches, and said, "I'll do my best." It was not a cure. It was not a solution. It was a 7-year-old girl and her grandmother at a Sunday table, in whatever time they have, doing what can actually be done between them right now, which is showing up, serving the soup, saying eat all of it, choosing the visible act over the private one. It is, I have come to believe, how love matures, not by becoming less urgent, but by finding ways to be received. If you have a quiet child who carries things privately, who goes still when something is wrong, who processes alone before they surface, please know that the quiet doesn't mean nothing is happening. It can mean the opposite. It can mean something very significant is happening, very carefully, entirely out of sight. Check in. Ask the real question. Sit with the pause long enough for the real answer to arrive. Sometimes what looks like a child not finishing her dinner is actually a child trying, with everything she has, to love someone back to health. They are watching us more carefully than we know, and they love us in ways that will stop you cold if you ask. Subscribe to Tender Heart Stories. Tell me in the comments, has your child ever surprised you with a kind of love you never saw coming? See you in the next one.